إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين وإمام المتقين عليا ولي الله أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين وإمام المتقين عليا حجة الله هيا على الصلاة هيا على الصلاة هيا على الفلاح هيا على الفلاح هيا على خير الأعمال هيا على خير الأعمال الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم اجعل قلبي بارا وعملي سارا وعيشي قارا ورزقي دارا وولادي برارا واجعل عند قبر نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم مستقرا وقرارا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم صل على
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي كان موجودا قبل حدوث الأشياء ويبقى بعد فناء الأشياء تفرد بالأولية والقدم ووسم كل شيء ما عداه بالفناء والعدم كما قال عز شأن كل شيء هالك إلا وجهه وكل نفس ذائقة الموت وقال كل من عليها فان ويبقى وجه ربك ذو الجلال والإكرام سبحان من لا يخفى عليه اختلاف النيات ولا يعزب عنه ماسي العباد في الخلوات سبحان الله الذي منه خلقة العباد وإليه المعاد فمن يعمل مثقال ذرة خير يره ومن يعمل مثقال ذرة شر يره نشهد أن لا إله إلا هو الملك الذي لا ينازع في ملكه ولا يضاد في محكمه يعذب من يشاء بما يشاء كيف يشاء ويرحم من يشاء بما يشاء كيف يشاء تعذيبه المسيئين عدل وعفوه تفضل ونشهد أن محمدا سيد المرسلين وخير المبشرين والمنذرين صلى الله عليه وآله الهداة المهديين من ركب سفينتهم نجا واهتدى ومن تخلف عنها ضل وخرقا وهوى أوصيكم عباد الله بالاعتصام بالتقوى فإنه حبل متين وعروة وثقى فقال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله يحب التوابين ويحب المتطهرين صلوات على محمد وآل محمد Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. I begin by advising myself and all of you to practice the piety and the taqwa of Allah as is the best of provisions. These last few days of Ayyam Azah, as we bid farewell to the sacrifices that were made 14 centuries ago and the majalis that we hold in reference to the greatest sacrifice on the history of mankind. Of course, we should not be bidding farewell to the lifestyle and the teachings of Imam Hussein. Yeah, the silsila of majalis might come to a halt. It might be the case that you're not having majalis every weekend, as usually is the case. In many places, 2 months and 8 days continuous majalis take place. That might not be the case. And so sort of you're going back to your normal routine, but nonetheless, what remains is the message of Hussein and the message of Karbala, and that's something for which you don't need Muharram. You don't need any specific time. You don't need Ashura and Arba'in just to be reminded of the sacrifices of Imam Hussein and his companions. Rather, anytime, any place, anywhere, this is a teaching that we should always keep it close to ourselves and implement as far as our lifestyle is concerned, because at the end of the day, that is what the main purpose behind Majlis-e-Aza is one of the benefits of this Majlis-e-Aza is the self-purification, is the self-building, the fact that you're able to do tazkiyah nafs, the fact that you're able to come close to each other, and by reminding yourself of the greatest sacrifice, you have the inclination to also be able to give little sacrifices. You have the inclination develop in you that you're also able to, let go of a few things and make these compromises and sacrifices. May not be at the large level of what Imam Hussein and his companions did, but at a smaller level within your own families, within your own community, that you're able to make those sacrifices. So today, for this khutbah, I recited this verse number 222 from Surah Baqarah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses this concept on numerous occasions in Quran. He says, "Inna Allaha yuhibbu at-tawwabin wa yuhibbu al-mutatahhirin." Allah loves those who repent and those who purify themselves. The concept of tathir, the concept of purification, has been mentioned on many occasions in Quran. In fact, when Allah speaks about Ahlul Bayt, it is His irada to keep them pure and clean. And then when He speaks about Rajal, people standing in masajid, He says these are the people, these are the individuals who love to purify themselves. يُحِبُّونَ أَن يَتَطَهَّرُوا. They love purifying themselves. And indeed, Allah loves those who are the purified ones. The concept of purification is important in Islam. Emphasis has been laid a great deal. Tahara, or purification, is a crucial part of Islam. In fact, Prophet of Islam, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, "An-nadafatu nisful iman." That cleanliness and purification is half of iman, is half of your faith, something which is being given the status of half the faith. Just imagine the status and the place and the maqam of that thing. And also, of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Ala, ayat number 14, when He says, "Qad aflaha man tazakka." That indeed, successful is the one who endured this purification, who purified himself. Look at the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used fi'l mazi, past tense, qad aflaha. It's not like qad yuflihu, or in future that person will be purified. It's no, qad aflaha. That person is pak and pakiza and pure. Man tazakka. Or the successful is the one who has purified himself or herself. So verily, he prospers who purifies himself. In our quest to please Allah, the one who's al-Quddus, the one who has grandeur, the one who's all purified, the most pure, Muslims strive for both external and internal purification. That is something which you and I deal with every single day. Therefore, we find that external purity manifests in many ways. We strive to be physically clean. And of course, you don't need a Jummah khutbah to come and tell you that how you need to keep yourself physically clean. But nonetheless, it's a good reminder sometimes for many of us, some of us, who slack in this area as well. Our most sacred rites, prayer, requires us to purify ourselves 5 times a day or 3 times a day. When we perform this ablution, we wash our faces, we wash our hands, we rinse our mouth, our nose, and then we run water through our head and our feet. That itself is a lesser purification or a smaller purification in the form of ablution that you're doing throughout the day. So that just the fact that I speak to the physician, how important it is, especially during the COVID era that we went by, that constantly washing your hands and cleaning your hands every time you touch a surface, how important it is to go ahead and wash your hands. So that is something which, of course, if you're praying 5 times, and a lot of times people question this as well. Is it 5 times or is it 3 times? Well, Baba, it makes no difference. Rasulullah prayed 5 times and Rasulullah prayed 3 times as well. You're okay to combine it. If you have opportunity to pray separately, you can go ahead and pray separately. So, well, it's a Sunni thing to pray separately. No, it's not a Sunni thing to pray separately. Or it's not a Shia thing to pray, combined 3 times a day. It's just the fact that, Rasulullah prayed, separately 5 times a day, majority of the time. And then some of the times Rasulullah combined his prayer whenever there was a reason or even without a reason. So therefore, we find the fact that there isn't any contradiction between the two. Don't make it into a Sunni or a Shia thing. The Sunnis pray 5 times and Shia only pray 3 times, or vice versa. No, you should also strive if you have a possibility and ability. If you're staying at home or even not, and if you can make a habit, you should go ahead and pray 5 times. In fact, there are more merits. Why? Because when you pray 5 times, you're praying at the time of its fadilat. So therefore, the concept of, washing yourself 5 times comes into play. Or for example, any other ibadat, just like fasting, must all be done in the state of ritual purity. You cannot fast while you're ritually impure. You cannot pray while you're ritually impure. You cannot go to a pilgrimage, right? Perform Hajj and Umrah without this purification that is required. At least 5 times a day, we perform wudu while praying, washing our hands, arms, faces, mouths, ears, and we clean it with fresh water. We also clean with water using the bathroom, for example, and take ritual bath, which is ghusl, after many of those things which require this ritual bath. Our places of worship should also be scrupulously clean. That's why you see effort is made to keep, masajid and imam bargas to be pristinely clean. Messenger of Allah, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam commanded that mosques be built among houses and that they be cleaned and perfumed. So alhamdulillah, our caretaker takes care of that while cleaning the place, perfuming the place, so that it is always in that state. Allah praised the worshippers in a mosque at Medina due to their great regard to cleanliness. For example, in Surah Tawbah, ayat number 108, it says, لَمَسْجِدٌ أُسِّسَ عَلَى التَّقْوَى مِنْ أَوَّلِ يَوْمٍ أَحَقُّ أَن تَقُومَ فِيهِ رِجَالٌ يُحِبُّونَ أَن يَتَطَهَّرُوا وَاللَّهُ يُحِبُّ الْمُطَهِّرِينَ. Within it are men who love to purify themselves, and Allah loves those who purify themselves. So therefore, people who were praying at that time, there was emphasis, a great deal of emphasis on the purification. Prophet strictly forbade consuming anything whose odor may be offensive to others prior to coming to the mosque. He said, whoever has eaten garlic or onion or anything of that sort, should not even go to the masjid the next day. Of course, now you have means of cleaning. Back in the day, they only had the miswak, and miswak can only get rid of so much. Now you have means of mouthwash and other things and deodorants and whatnot to be able to clean yourself. So it's okay, even if you had eaten it last night, you can still come for Salatul Jummah. For over 1,000 years, Islam has been distinguished by its focus on physical cleanliness. In the Middle Ages, when the vast majority of Europeans placed very little value on personal hygiene, rarely bathed, and frequently died of preventable diseases, Muslims had an extremely enlightened and advanced approach to hygiene and medicine at that time. Crusading knights would boast to the hygiene-conscious Muslims of only having bathed 4 or 5 times a year. They would be boasting and bragging about it. And of course, many tens of thousands of Christians would end their days in the Holy Land, not falling in glorious battles, but through simple lack of basic hygiene or the victim of primitive Western healthcare. This is something which is, of course, there in the history. By contrast, even at that time, like some of those Muslims, Islamic society was highly sophisticated, both in hygiene and as well as in medicine. The hadith states that personal cleanliness is half of your iman. And Islamic society put this into effect. Medieval Muslims would wash before each prayer, and of course, just like they do today. They would do the same thing. Over the years, wudu has not changed. The concept of wudu has not been replaced. It's the same wudu that is mentioned in Surah Ma'idah, ayat number 6. فَاغْسِلُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ إِلَى الْمَرَافِقِ وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ وَأَرْجُلَكُمْ إِلَى الْكَعْبَيْنِ. The same concept that has revealed 14 centuries ago in the medieval time. Muslims were also doing it. But now, of course, to what extent, while wudu was something which was being done, washing themselves was being done, alcohol was, of course, forbidden. It's still back then and it still is today. How far these religious laws were being observed, that's debatable. We don't know how many people were observing this. But nonetheless, Islam had this in place. Even today, you can debate how many people are observing these Islamic rituals that are mentioned in Quran, things that are forbidden in their nature, pork, for example, or alcohol, for example, and all the other things that are haram. But how many people are still, practicing? That's a debatable thing. But nonetheless, the laws were there as far as Muslim society is concerned. So therefore, scholars like Abul Qasim al-Zahrawi, who is this guy, al-Bikusa, he's the pioneer of modern surgery, born in the year 936 AD in al-Zahra. That's why he's known as Zahrawi. Zahrawi because of al-Zahra. Al-Zahra is a town near Cordoba in old Andalus. That's where he was born, and therefore, because of the nisbat to the town where he was born, he's called Zahrawi. So he's born in a town called Zahra, and he's known as Zahrawi. What did he do? He invented hair removal techniques, bad breath cures, and even underarm deodorant, and 200 surgical tools were invented by this man. And of course, this is the work that he has done, and still, of course, is present in history. He died in the year 1013 at the age of 77. Now, this is as far as physical purity is concerned. While external purity is fairly easy to achieve. Wouldn't you agree? It's easy to achieve the external purity. You can easily purify yourself. Especially in the modern times when most people have easy access to clean water. Internal purity is a lifelong challenge, right? To be able to internally purify yourself, that's something which is a lifelong challenge. It takes people years and years to achieve an internal purification. To have pure heart that is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we must learn to control our thoughts, our desires, and as well as our actions. The Prophet of Islam, noble Prophet, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, وَإِنَّ فِي الْجَسَدِ مُزْغَةً إِذَا صَلَحَتْ صَلَحَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّهُ وَإِذَا فَسَدَتْ فَسَدَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّهُ أَلَا وَهِيَ الْقَلْبُ. He said, verily, in the body is a piece of flesh. In all of our bodies, there's a piece of flesh. And if sound, the entire body is sound. And if corrupt, the entire body is corrupt. Truly, that piece of flesh is your heart. If the heart is clean, that's why you hear this maqula a lot of time. Maulana, wo dil ke bahut achhe hain. Meaning what? By heart, the person is very nice. Might be doing, a lot of committing some sins or na'udhu involved in drinking or other stuff. But dil ka bahut acha hai. He's very good at heart. So right away, that became a maqula, right? Dil ke bahut achhe hai. Or for example, when you go for proposal or something, the family, the boy is, very good at heart, for example. What do you mean, very good at heart? Well, that's what we mean. When the heart is pure, then of course other body parts, not the physical body parts, remain pure. For the physical purification, the method that I mentioned before, you knew better than me. For the internal purification also, heart is being referred to here. Now heart does not mean this, organ that sits right here in your chest, guarded by these, bones and whatnot. It's heart here refers to your aql. Heart here refers to your soul. Heart here refers to your lub, right? The thinking process. The concept of purification is not by physically purifying. That's why maybe some people thought that was the case. Rasulullah, na'udhu billah, you find this in ahadith, was a young kid, and the angels came and performed an operation, took his heart out, cleaned it, and then put it back together, sewed it up, and there you go, Rasulullah's heart was purified. No, there was never about cleanliness in the physical aspect of this heart. You can wash this heart as many times as possible, but if it's internally corrupt, then nothing's going to happen to it. And I always give this example of a vessel, a cup, a glass, sitting outside by the water fountain. If the glass is dirty, you're not going to drink water in it. Now, if you didn't notice it, you pour water into it, what happens? The water will become corrupted. But water does not have the ability to purify that which corruption that is in there, unless it is, of course, drained. If you pour water in it and the water does not go out anywhere, then the pure impurity will remain, and you'll consume that. So therefore, it is always mentioned that Rasulullah, what is mentioning over here, that verily in the body is a piece of flesh, which if sound. So soundness of heart does not mean that you don't have any heart disease. Soundness of heart does not mean that you don't have high blood pressure. Soundness of heart does not mean that you haven't had any heart surgeries or bypass or open and whatnot. No, soundness of heart means that you might have had multiple heart surgeries, but you're still sound at heart. Why? Spiritually speaking, your heart is salamat and sound. So how to achieve a pure heart? Of course, there are many, numerous ways which have been mentioned in the books of Ahadith. I'll mention a few reasons over here how we can do that with a loud Nare Salawat. Number one, ask Allah for forgiveness. The Messenger of Allah said, indeed, when the servant commits a sin, a black dot appears on his heart. When he desists, seeks forgiveness, and repents, his heart is polished clean. And of course, but if he commits a sin again, then it increases until the heart is completely covered with these dots. So that's one way of, again, the example is given in a physical sense, but of course we understand the spiritual aspect which is being mentioned over here. So ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness every day. There's nothing wrong in making dua for seeking forgiveness every morning. Make it into your motto that every morning you'll wake up, well, first thing you'll say is what? Alhamdulillah. Allah has given me life again. And then say, well, astaghfirullah for sins that I may have committed in the past or whatever. Or at the night time, when you're going to bed, seek forgiveness and tawbah for the entire day's work. Remind yourself, that was wrong. That was wrong. I should not have done that. Oh Allah, I ask for forgiveness. Right away, when you keep your accountability in check every night, guess what? These things are not going to pile up. And how quickly do we forget when we have done something wrong? How quickly do we forget when we have committed a sin? Quickly, because there's this hubbi dhat, love for the self. I don't want any dirt on me. I want it to be, away from me. And therefore, right away, is seeking this forgiveness can do that. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So that's number one. Ask Allah for forgiveness. Number two, read the Quran and make dhikr. Again, these are all clearly instructions from Quran. Keep your tongue busy with glorification of Allah. قَدْ أَفْلَهَا مَنْ تَزَكَّى وَذَكَرَ اسْمَ رَبِّهِ وَصَلَّى. قَدْ أَفْلَهَا, I already mentioned. He has succeeded who purifies himself, who remembers the name of Allah and prays. So the concept of success and purification also lies in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number three, let go of grudges. Prophet advised his companions to begin and end each day by emptying his heart of hatred and resentment for anyone. One of the best ways we can do this is to make dua for the person that we're angry at. If we sincerely ask Allah to forgive and guide them. How many times have you heard this story? Man came to Imam and started making fun of Imam's mother. Said something ill-fated about Imam's mother. Fifth Imam, I believe. First he tried to make fun of Imam's name. That didn't work. Imam corrected him. He was trying to get under the skin of Imam. Then he said, well, if that didn't work, let me go ahead and say something ill-fated about his mother. He said, your mother is so-and-so. What did Imam say? Exactly what it mentioned over here. One of the best ways we can do this is to make dua for the other person that we're angry at. Imam said, if my mother was like what you have said, then may Allah forgive her. But if you're associating a lie to her, then may Allah forgive you. Meaning what? You're committing a sin. But may Allah forgive you for committing this sin. And Rasulullah said what? Make dua from a tongue that you haven't sinned with. Make dua from a tongue that you haven't sinned with. He said, oh Rasulullah, that's going to be difficult. We all have sinned with this tongue. He said, no. And someone else should make dua for you. When someone else makes dua for you, you haven't sinned with that tongue. Right? My next door person sitting next to me makes dua for me. I haven't sinned through his tongue. So therefore, if he makes dua for me, I reciprocate and I go ahead and make dua for that individual. And that's one way of getting closer to Allah. So let go of these grudges. We are on our way to emptying our heart of the grudges that pollute us. Identify your shortcomings and sins and work to overcome them. Of course, it's easier said than done. Beware of the hidden sins of jealousy, pride, arrogance, which are disease of the heart. Again, the mention of the heart in the beginning was not a physical heart. It was a spiritual aspect. Similarly, these are not physical ailments. Jealousy, envy, hasad, all of these are arrogance, pride. These are what? These are internal ailments that creep up. And sometimes, believe it or not, there's no, for external pain or any other physical ailment, you might be able to take a pill. But for these, there doesn't exist a pill. You need to have the determination. In fact, maybe it could be said the same thing about a physical ailment. That when a person has to be physically get cured, they need to have willpower. You know, a lot of times doctors might tell someone, look, if you want to get cured, we're giving you the medicine that is needed. But at the same time, you need to do what? You need to have this willpower to feel that you're going to get healthy once again. Same thing goes for that. There's no pill for removing jealousy and arrogance and pride. But there's willpower that is needed in order to remove all of these from your system. So when we make an unimportant mistake, kids sitting over here, listen to this. When you make an unimportant mistake, and we always make these unimportant mistakes all the time, there is a temptation to let go and ignore it. As you get older and you become a parent, then you don't let go of these unimportant mistakes, especially when it comes from your children. They made an unimportant mistake, and you're going to catch them. You don't let go of an opportunity of an unimportant mistake made by a child. Right away, you're going to catch him. But when you make an unimportant mistake, there's a temptation to let go of it, ignore it. What's the big deal? It's not a big deal. If the dishes aren't pristinely clean, it won't change much in the grand scheme of things, right? So what? The dishes aren't cleaned properly, and a little bit smudges on it. Inshallah, no problem. It says, no, this sets a bad precedent for walking by small errors. When you walk by small errors, it gives you courage to then walk by bigger errors. You're easily going past through a lot of these other errors and mistakes that you make. So therefore, on the weak point in your armor, inspect your armor and find its weakest point, the common thread that leads you into most temptations or poses the biggest barrier to achieving your goals. What is that one thing? It could be many things, but that one thing, which is that, in your armor, you find that to be a weakness of yours. I'm sure all of us have weaknesses. At the end of the day, we are all insan. For example, in my case, one of my weakest points is patience. Or let's say impatience. If I do something, I want to go all out and get results, and I'm impatient about it. So, gotta learn to have patience. Show some resolve. Endure things for a little while and then come about it. So look for that weak point in yourself and try to get away from it. Reflect about Allah often. Take note of Allah's beautiful creation, many blessings that He has given to you, and His marvelous attributes all around you. You know what our problem is? We focus on things that we don't have, and we overlook things that we possess. You're not looking at what you have in your hands right now, but you're looking at what someone else has in their hands right now. Always off after that. And therefore, you're unable to then reflect upon God's bounties that has been bestowed upon you. You're unable to appreciate life because He has given a great deal to you as well. Therefore, we find, number 5 is try to have sincere good intentions toward your fellow believers. Wish them success. Do not think the worst of them. Give them the benefit of the doubt. This attribute is something which you find in the kalam of the noble prophet Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is directly out of the ayat of Surah Hujurat, which also speaks of the same note and talk. Iyyakum waz-zanni fa inna adh-dhanna akdhabul hadith wa la tahassasu وَلَا تَجَسَّسُوا وَلَا تَحَاسَدُوا وَلَا تَدَابَرُوا وَلَا تَبَاغَضُوا وَكُونُوا عِبَادَ اللَّهِ إِخْوَانًا. This hadith is so beautiful that you could have an entire Ramadan, talk on this hadith. What does he say? He says, beware of suspicion, for suspicion is the worst of false tales. Do not spy on one another. Do not look for others' faults. Do not be jealous of one another. Do not be envy of one another. Do not hate one another. And do not desert or shun one another. And, O Allah's servants, be brothers in Iman. That's what your first and foremost duty is. That's how you can get this clean heart. Remember, don't forget the main theme. Number 6 is spend time in good company. And avoid those who bring out the worst in you. If you know, for instance, that you tend to gossip and backbite when you're with certain group, avoid that group. Stay away from it. You don't have to be part of every gathering or every majlis or every, use the word majlis over here, not for Masjid-e-Ali. Majlis means in Arabic, a place of julus. Right? Every gathering is not worth your time. You know, because you're not going to get anything positive out of it. That is, again, one way of cleaning your heart. Focus less on worldly life. We get distracted by so many things and lose sight of the big picture. Pleasing Allah should always be our first priority. I'm eating to please Allah. I'm running to please Allah. I'm swimming to please Allah. I didn't talk about any wajibat, any mustahabat. All of my acts are not for my neighbor, not for my wife, not for my mother. I hope she's not listening. Not for anyone else. They're for whom? They are for pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Pleasing Allah should always be the first priority. Often that means sacrificing things that distract us. If you spend less time scrolling on social media, binge watching TV, and acquiring more stuff and replace those things with the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and good deeds, we will be on our way to have this pure heart that Masumeen are mentioning in this sequence. This is one way. There are many things that are within our reach. It's not something which is a rocket science. It requires extra amount of, for example, environment, cleanliness of the environment. No, this is not achievable, Maulana. What are you talking about? No, these are well within our reach. And they could be easily achieved if you put a little bit of effort into it. And of course, as I said in the beginning, Majalis of Imam Hussain, can and should be one of the best ways of the purification of the heart. If Majlis Aza is unable to purify you, then God knows what can purify you. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq and ability to ponder over these words and the kalam of Masumeen alayhim salatu wassalam. Inna hasan al-hadith wa ablagh al-mawida kitabullahi a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Wal asri innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilus salihat wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحليم الكريم غافر الذنب وقابل التوب وهو الغفور الرحيم سبحان من سبقت رحمته غضبه وبسط اليدين بالرحمة سبحان من لم يكلف نفسا إلا دون وسعها وفعل سيئات ولم يجاز بها سبحان من لا يزداد على معاصي العباد إلا كرما وجودا ولا كثر الذنوب إلا عفوا وصفا نشهد أن لا إله إلا هو لطوف للعباد بجوده والعباد والمذنبين بحلمه ونشهد أن محمدا نبيه وحبيبه سيد المرسلين وشفيع المذنبين بعثه رحمة للعالمين ألا قد أمركم الله في محكم كتابه بالصلاة على نبيه وحبيبه فقال تعليما لكم وتشريفا لصفيه إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيد المرسلين وشفيع المذنبين نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وعلى إمام المسلمين وقائد الغر المحجلين أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب صلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى سيدة النساء العالمين وبذة خاتم النبيين سيدتنا فاطمة بنت رسول الله صلوات الله عليها وعلى الحسين الحسن المجتبى والحسين الشهيد بكربلاء وعلي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى محمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي عليهم الصلاة والسلام اللهم صل على مولانا صاحب الزمان ما هي آثار البدع والطغيان هادم أبنية الشرك والنفاق حاسد الفرور البغي والشقاق صلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى آبائه الكرام ما اتصلت الليالي والأيام اللهم عجل فرجا وسهل مخرجا واكحل ناظرنا بنظرة منا إليه واجعلنا من المستشهدين بين يديه وتفضل على أمراء المؤمنين بمزيد التوفيقات والزيادة الإقبال وأولو الدرجات اللهم افعل بنا ما أنت أهله ولا تفعل بنا ما نحن أهله بجاه محمد وآله المعصومين صلوات الله عليهم أجمعين. يذكروا فتنفعهم الذكرى إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله أشهد أن عليا حجة الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يسبح لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض الملك القدوس العزيز الحكيم. هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين آخرين منهم لما يلحقوا بهم وهو العزيز الحكيم. ذلك فضل الله يؤتيه من يشاء والله ذو الفضل العظيم. مثل الذين حملوا التوراة ثم لم يحملوها كمثل الحمار يحمل أسفارا بئس مثل القوم الذين كذبوا بآيات الله والله لا يهدي القوم الظالمين. قل يا أيها الذين هادوا إن زعمتم أنكم أولياء لله من دون الناس فتمنوا الموت إن كنتم صادقين ولا يتمنونه أبدا بما قدمت أيديهم والله عليم بالظالمين. قل إن الموت الذي تفرون منه فإنه ملاقيكم ثم تردون إلى عالم الغيب والشهادة فينبئكم بما كنتم تعملون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون. فإذا قضيت الصلاة فانتشروا في الأرض وابتغوا من فضل الله واذكروا الله كثيرا لعلكم تفلحون. وإذا رأوا تجارة أو لهوا انفضوا إليها وتركوك قائمة قل ما عند الله خير من اللهو ومن التجارة والله خير الرازقين. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمد رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته يقوم ويقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار بجاه محمد وآله الأطهار. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. يا لطيف ارحم عبدك الضيف. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر.
الله ملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. تسبيح جناب فاطمة الزهراء سلام الله عليها. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم الرحمن الرحيم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. All of us together. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة لابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرزك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Today's Jummah lunch is sponsored by Dr. Tahseen, Brother Tawsif Ali Uppal, and Brother Hassan Abbas and their families. Please recite Surah Fatiha for their marhumin as well as your marhumin, especially for the following marhumin: Shabir Hussain, Fawzia Ali Uppal, Riaz Ali Uppal, and Syed Ishtiyaq Hussain Rizvi, and Maulana Tilmiz Hassan Rizvi. Please recite Surah Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Just a quick reminder of the upcoming programs. This will be the last in this series of, or the Majalis-e-Aza, Ayyam-e-Aza, marking on this coming Saturday, which will be tomorrow, September 23rd, when we commemorate the Shahadat of Imam Hassan al-Askari alayhi salatu wasalam. It will also coincide with the Salasa Majlis for Marhum Maulana Syed Tilmiz Hassan Rizvi. Program will start at 6:30 with Quran Pani, Quran recitation. 7:15 or 7:10 is Namaz Maghriban, followed by Namaz Maghriban, inshallah, Majlis will take place. You're requested to attend this last Majlis of the Ayyam-e-Aza with your family and friends. Weekend upon us, so Salatul Fajr, let me just update the timing, 5:30 a.m. Salatul Fajr on Saturday and Sunday. Please join us for that as well. And upcoming programs, inshallah, we'll be celebrating Eid Miladun Nabi and the Wiladat of our sixth Imam, Imam Jafar as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam. We've done it separately in the past, and inshallah this is how we'll do it. But on Sunday, October 1st, we will have the celebration for Eid Miladun Nabi. We have a guest speaker, Sheikh Amin Rastani, I believe, is coming to join us for that occasion. Further program details will be sent out in the email that goes on Monday. 5 p.m. inshallah, so Sunday 5 p.m. inshallah. There you go, program will start, and of course, intention is to finish it by Namaz-e-Maghriban. Let's recite Dua Sahat for all of those people who are in need of dua, those who are suffering, struggling, going through a difficult time. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring them out of their difficulties with the barakat of these ayyam. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Amman yujibu al-mustarra idha da'ahu yakshifu as-su'. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء 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 ويجعلكم خلفاء الأرض أإله مع الله قليلا ما تذكرون. Please fill in the gaps before we proceed to Namaz-e-Asr. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Ashhadu anna Aliyan waliyullah. Ashhadu anna Aliyan hujjatullah. Hayya ala salati, hayya ala salah. Hayya ala al-falah, hayya ala al-falah. حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمد الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر بحول الله وقوته يقوم ويقعد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. رب زدني علما نافعا وعملا صالحا والحقني بالصالحين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته يقوم ويقعد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. يا لطيف ارحم عبدك الضيف. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
الله ملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. تسبيح.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم الرحمن الرحيم ذو الجلال والإكرام، وأسأله أن يتوب علي توبة عبد ذليل خاضع فقير باعث مسكين مستقيم مستجير، لا يملك لنفسه نفعا ولا ضرا ولا موتا ولا حياة ولا نشورا. اللهم إني أعوذ بك من نفس لا تشبع، ومن قلب لا يخشى، ومن علم لا ينفع، ومن صلاة لا ترفع، ومن دعاء لا يسمع. اللهم إني أسألك اليسر بعد العسر، والفرج بعد الكرب، والرخاء بعد الشدة. اللهم ما بنا من نعمة فمنك، لا إله إلا أنت، أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Today recited ziyarat of the father of our Imam Hassan Yusri Islam. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum ya Nabi Allah, assalamu alaikum ya Amir al-Mu'minin, ya Qasim al-Jannati wal-Nar. Assalamu alaikum ya Sayyidina Sallallahu Alameen. Assalamu alaikum ya Maulana ya Hassan ibn Ali al-Hadi al-Muhtadi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum ya Wali Allah wa ibn awliyai, ya Hujjatullah wa ibn hujjaj, ya Safi Allah wa ibn asfiyai, ya Khalifatullah wa ibn khulafai wa aba khalifati. Assalamu alaikum ya Khatam al-Nabiyyin, ya ibn Sayyid al-Basiyyin, ya ibn Amir al-Mu'minin, ya ibn Fatima al-Tahra Sayyid Sallallahu Alameen. Assalamu alaikum ya ibn Ayman al-Hadin, ya ibn Sayyid al-Awsiya al-Rashidin, ya Ismat al-Muttaqin, ya Imam al-Faizin, ya Rukn al-Mu'minin. Assalamu alaikum ya Faraj al-Malhufin, ya Waris al-Anbiya al-Muntajabin, ya Khazin al-Ilm wasi Rasulullah. Assalamu alaikum ayyu da'i bi hukmillah. Assalamu alaikum ayyu natiqu bi kitabillah. Assalamu alaikum ya Hujjat al-Hujaj. Assalamu alaikum ya Hadi al-Umam, ya Wali al-Ni'am, ya Abat al-Ilm, ya Safinat al-Hilm. Assalamu alaikum ya Abul Imam al-Muntazir al-Zahirati للعاقل حجة والثابتة في اليقين معرفة المنتجب مختجب عن عين الظالمين والمغيب عن دولة الفاسقين والمعيد ربنا بالإسلام جديدا بعد الانتماس والقرآن وسن بعد الاندراس. أشهد يا مولاي أنك أقمت الصلاة وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر ودعوت إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة وبطل مخلصا حتى تعقلكين. أصلى الله بالشان الذي لكم عنده أن يتقبل زيارتي لكم، يشكر سعي إليكم ويستجيب دعائي بكم ويجعلني من أنصار الحق وأتباعي وأشيائي ومالي ومبي. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليكم يا أهل بيت الجمهور وجمهورهم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليكم صاحب الأسر والزمان، يا خليفة الرحمن، يا كعبة الإيمان، يا تفسير الفرقان. السلام عليكم شريك القرآن. السلام عليكم يا إمام زماننا، أجل الله فرجك وظهورك ورحمة الله وبركاته.